Something has changed within me. Something is not the same. It's funny how I knew quite a few songs from Wicked by heart, but never really understood the context behind them. By now, I have watched both movies and I was blown away. The story defined all of my expectations on how the fight between good and evil should unfold. In today's episode, I want to talk about Elphaba, and now through her story, we get to see the many facets of courage. Please note that my view is based on the movies only, and there will be some spoilers, so if you want to avoid them, come back to this video after you have watched both movies. Go do it. Trust me, they're incredible. Elphaba grew up in Oz, a magical land where human and animals coexist. Ever since she was born, Elphaba has always been an outcast. She looks physically different from everyone else with her green skin, and she possesses magical powers that she views as a weird quirk, an uncontrollable burden. She feels a strong sense of guilt and responsibility towards her mother's death and her sister's disability. So Elphaba is a girl with deep insecurities who desperately wants to be loved and accepted. But all she gets in return is rejection from her family and her community. She dreams of meeting the wizard, who is the ultimate leader and a powerful sorcerer of Oz. Well, to put it simply, the people of Oz worship him. She believes that if the wizard accepts her, her family and the people of Oz would love and accept her too. Along the way, Elphaba meets Glinda, who is her first and only friend at school. They can't stand each other at first due to polar opposite personalities and worldviews, but eventually become best friends. And then, when Elphaba finally meets the wizard, she discovers that he is a fraud, and he's a tyrant who wants to take advantage of her to serve his own interest. He wants to use her magical powers to implement more sophisticated spying on the population and to continue oppressing the talking animals, which represents the minority in Oz. The poor girl must have a root shock. The very wizard she dreams of teaming up with wants to use her to do evil. And how does she react? She rejects him, knowing that her rejection comes at a cost. She subsequently becomes a fugitive as the wizard sends his army of guards to hunt her down and manipulates the public into believing that she is the Wicked Witch. It is her refusal to be manipulated by him, despite having a lot to gain personally had she chosen to cooperate, that makes us realize she has very strong moral principles and she is incredibly courageous. Can you imagine how difficult it is to go against the pressure to conform and the pressure to submit to a figure of authority? First of all, this girl has been hungry for love and acceptance her entire life. Earlier in the story, in the song Wizard and I, we hear her sing, "Once I'm with the wizard, my whole life will change. 'Cause when you are with a wizard, no one thinks you are strange. No father is not proud of you, no sister acts ashamed, and all of Oz has to love you." It really shows how much she looks up to the wizard as the savior. It also shows how strongly she believes that gaining the wizard's approval is key to gaining the approval of her family and the people of Oz. And yet, in Defying Gravity, when she is about to flee from the wizard, she sings this: "Too long I've been afraid of losing love, I guess I've lost. Well, if that's love, it comes at much too high a cost." The cost here is being complicit in the subjugation and mistreatment of the minority group, which is a cause that she is passionate about. She would rather not have acceptance if it means she has to compromise on her values. In the second movie, her resolve is once again tested. After being on the run for a while with the whole country viewing her as the enemy, she strikes a deal with the wizard where he agrees to stop the oppression of the animals, and in exchange she would cooperate. She is genuinely happy that all of this could come to a good end. However, that happiness is short-lived because she soon discovers that the wizard is not sincere about the deal, and once again she has to say no. You can argue that Elphaba has special magical powers, so unlike the other people in Oz, she probably has the best shot at overthrowing the wizard. But for all her life, she has never thought of herself as special. She thinks that the odds are stacked against her, but she just cannot not do the right thing. And that is courage right there. We also see Elphaba's courage when she has to face her best friend's disapproval. When Elphaba decides to become a fugitive, Glinda thinks it's a bad idea. She actively dissuades Elphaba by saying things like, "You can still be with the wizard. What you have worked and waited for, you can have all you ever wanted. Can't I make you understand you're having delusion of grandeur?" So Glinda comes from a place of concern for Elphaba. She knows that by becoming the wizard's enemy, Elphaba will be in great danger, and she is also not confident that Elphaba will be successful. But if we look at Glinda's disapproval from Elphaba's perspective, we'll see how disappointing and crushing it must be. Elphaba calls Glinda out for groveling in submission, and even until the end, Elphaba still wishes that her best friend would come with her. And when she accepts that Glinda will not come, that's probably when she feels lonelier than ever, but that still doesn't change her mind. That's just incredibly courageous. It makes me wonder, where does her courage come from? And I think it comes from a clear sense of purpose. Those who have a why to live for can bear almost anyhow. When she chooses the fugitive life, she chooses to live her everyday pursuing her why. And as a result, the idea might not sound that miserable to her. In fact, it can be even liberating and empowering. We hear this very idea in the last few lines of Defying Gravity. And if I'm flying solo, at least I'm flying free, and nobody in all of Oz, no wizard that there is or was, is ever gonna bring me down. Well, not the best idea to openly challenge the wizard that way, but you see my point. You know what is fascinating about Wicked is the story does not shy away from showing us how naive Elphaba's bravery is. This is not a story of a girl next door with superpowers who saves the world. If this were a Marvel movie, Elphaba would use her superpowers to save the people of Oz and win the admiration of everyone. But Wicked has a totally different take from that. Compared to the wizard, who controls the media, the army, and the public opinion, Elphaba has significantly less resources and support. Most of her attempts are brute force in nature, where she tries to force the wizard to confess, thinking that the people knowing the truth is enough. But this is naive thinking. The wizard ends up telling her that even if he tells the people the truth, they won't believe him. Because in their minds, it is set in stone that the great and wonderful wizard can do no wrong, and the wicked witch of the West is, well, wicked. This is where the story nuanced take on courage comes to shine, because courage without a proper strategy and effective execution is just recklessness. Elphaba doesn't understand what she's trying to do is politics, and she definitely doesn't understand politics. Even the marginalized community, who is a direct beneficiary of her cause, does not believe her. And as a result, she is a lone wolf in her resistance. You know who understands politics? It's her best friend Glinda. Earlier in the story, in the song Popular, Glinda explains to Elphaba that for politicians or heads of states, it's not about having brain or knowledge, it's all about popular. So she really knows the game. Eventually, it is Glinda who removes the wizard from power and implements policy changes that protect the minority group. Elphaba also realizes this as the story comes to an end. In For Good, she accepts that she is limited, that her ability to bring about changes is limited. When she tells Glinda, they need someone to be wicked in order for you to be good. That's her ultimate sacrifice, being hated by everyone in Oz as the Wicked Witch. And she accepts it. It's never about her being the hero. It's about whatever it takes for the cause to be successful. But we don't need to feel sorry for Elphaba, thinking that all her courage and efforts were in vain, because Glinda wouldn't have gone on to do so much good if not for Elphaba. It was Elphaba's courage and willingness to sacrifice for the cause that inspires Glinda to change for good. From someone who mostly cares about her own interest, who is generally apathetic about social issues, and who doesn't believe the system can be changed, she becomes someone who uses the system to do good. My takeaway from this is just like how fear is contagious, courage is contagious too. Maybe it spreads more slowly, one person at a time. Seeing someone stand up for what is right gives other people's hope. So even though Elphaba is gone, that hope that the cause is worth fighting for lives on in Gunda and subsequently other people. I know it's just a fictional story, but art is inspired by life and life is inspired by art. And I think the story of courage in Wicked is a good reminder for us all. It makes us ponder how wonderful it feels to have a why to live for, such that our everyday feels fulfilling. It reminds us that courage to stand up for what is right is precious. Sometimes courage alone without the right skill sets doesn't bring the best outcome, but just by acting with courage, it inspires and gives hope to other people who might have the right skill sets to bring about positive changes. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoy this episode, click like and subscribe to The Third Spring. Till we meet again, meanwhile, live well and pursue your why.